Welcome to the 1 Hour Guide by Anil Nathu. We love diving deep into these insightful business books, you know?
Oh, yeah.
Today we're going to be unpacking Empowered, Ordinary People, Extraordinary Products by Marty Cagan.
Sounds good.
You know those business books that feel like they could be half the size?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, well, consider this deep dive like your shortcut to the good stuff.
I like the shortcut.
Yeah.
So what's fascinating about this book, is that Kagan really focuses on how seemingly average teams can create these amazing products. It challenges this myth that you need these rock star geniuses to build something truly great.
It's almost like he's saying, look, you don't need a team of superheroes. You just need the right environment, the right tools.
Exactly. And I think this 1 Hour Guide by Anil Nathu does a fantastic job of distilling those really essential elements, What are those key ingredients?
It's like having a cheat sheet to building a truly empowered product team. Have you ever felt like your ideas were getting lost in the corporate machine?
Oh, yeah.
Like no one was really listening? I think we've all been there.
Well, Kagan's book and this deep dive might just be the antidote. He's worked with some of the biggest names in tech, Google, Netflix, Amazon, and he's distilled their success down to some core principles.
One of the things that really struck me was his emphasis on how top tech companies view technology. They don't see it as just a cost center, but as the heart of their strategy. It's like a fundamental shift in perspective.
And that shift changes everything. Think about it. How decisions are made, how resources are allocated, even how teams are structured. It's no longer about the IT department being those tech people off in a corner.
Right. And it really highlights the need for strong product leadership, not just managers, but leaders who really understand the product development process and can coach their teams to success. It reminds me of, well, actually, you know what? I'm not going to name any names, but we've all seen companies where their leadership style really impacted their product outcomes for better or for worse.
Yeah.
But what really resonated with me was this idea of the empowered product team. It's not just about having a cross-functional group. It's about giving them real autonomy to solve problems.
Absolutely. You're totally right. Kagan argues that these teams should be able to make decisions, experiment, even fail, without constantly seeking permission from higher-ups.
It's about trusting them to own their work and really run with it. And honestly, that makes so much sense, doesn't it? When you think about times you felt truly motivated, truly creative at work, it's often because you had that ownership, that freedom to explore.
Absolutely. And this idea of empowerment isn't just some feel-good concept. It's actually backed by research on motivation and creative problem solving. Kagan's really tapping into something fundamental about how humans thrive in the workplace.
Now, speaking of thriving, the next part of the book, as highlighted in the 1 Hour Guide by Anil Nathu, delves into this idea of coaching. And it's not just about giving your team a pat on the back and saying, good job. It's much deeper than that.
Yeah, what's so fascinating about this section is how Kagan presents coaching as an ongoing process. It's about seeing the potential in people and helping them grow, not just managing tasks or hitting deadlines.
I've had managers who are all about checking boxes and meeting deadlines.
Yeah.
But the ones who really made a difference were those who invested in me as a person, who helped me learn and grow.
That's exactly the kind of leadership that Kagan advocates for. He even suggests using a written narrative as a coaching tool. You can imagine you and your manager having a shared document where you both track your observations, challenges, those aha moments.
That level of intentionality really struck me. It's about creating transparency, accountability, and a shared responsibility for growth. It's not just the manager dictating everything. It's a true partnership.
And building that kind of relationship takes time, It takes effort. But the payoff can be huge, both for the individual and the team as a whole.
It makes me wonder, though. You can have the best coaching in the world, but if you don't have the right people on the bus, to use that old analogy, it's not going to matter much, right?
He hit the nail on the head. And that's where Kagan's insights on staffing become so crucial. As is summarized in this 1 Hour Guide by Anil Nathu, he really stresses the importance of hiring for both competence and character.
I'll admit, when I first heard that phrase, I thought, isn't competence enough? But the more I think about it, the more I see how character plays such a huge role in team dynamics.
Think about it this way. You could have someone who's technically brilliant, a coding wizard, let's say.
Yeah.
But if they're also a toxic personality, always negative, always undermining others, their brilliance can become a liability.
I've seen that firsthand. One bad apple can really spoil the whole bunch, so to speak.
Exactly. And that's why Kagan argues that cultural fit is just as important as technical skills. You want people who not only have the skills to do the job, but also the right attitude, the right work ethic, the ability to collaborate effectively.
So how do you actually assess character during the hiring process? Is it just about gut feeling? Or are there more concrete ways to evaluate it?
Well, Kagan offers some really practical advice on this. He talks about looking beyond the resume, asking behavioral questions, questions that reveal a candidate's values, and how they've handled challenging situations in the past. He even suggests incorporating boot camps into the onboarding process.
Boot camps for new hires.
Yeah.
That sounds intense.
It's not about pushing them to their limits physically, but it is about immersing them in the company culture, giving them hands-on experience, and really accelerating their learning curve.
So it's like a fast-track program to get them up to speed and integrate it into the team.
Exactly. And it's a way to ensure that everyone is on the same page, sharing the same values, and working towards the same goals.
It all comes back to this idea of long-term investment. Hiring the right people from the start, even if it takes more time and effort up front, can save you so much headache down the road.
Absolutely. And Kagan doesn't shy away from the tougher aspects of staffing either. He talks about performance reviews and even terminations, but always with a focus on fairness and growth.
It's about creating a culture where feedback is seen as a gift, not a punishment, and where even difficult conversations are handled with respect and transparency.
Precisely. And speaking of transparency, let's talk about product vision. This is where things get really exciting.
Part 4 of the 1-Hour Guide by Anil Nathu really highlights this. Kagan argues that a strong product vision is like a North Star. It guides every decision and keeps the team aligned.
I love that analogy.
Yeah.
Without a clear vision, it's so easy to get lost in the weeds, chasing shiny objects, and ultimately ending up with a product that's all over the place.
It's like trying to build a house without a blueprint. You might end up with something that stands up, but it's not going to be pretty. And it's definitely not going to be what you envisioned.
Right. And Kagan emphasizes the importance of clearly articulating that vision, making it something that everyone understands and can really rally behind. Think about companies like Apple, whose vision of intuitive and beautifully designed products has driven them to incredible success.
It's about more than just having a cool idea. It's about having a clear sense of purpose, a reason for being.
Absolutely. And Kagan goes beyond just the vision itself. He also talks about the importance of product principles, those core tenets that define how a company develops products.
So the vision is the destination, and the principles are the rules of the road that get you there.
Exactly. And these principles help ensure consistency, ethical practices, and a product that truly reflects the company's values.
It makes me think of, well, there's a company, again, I'm not going to name any names, but we all know companies where their guiding principles, or lack thereof, really shape their products and their public image. So we have our vision, our principles. What's next? How do we actually structure the team to bring all this to life?
That's where part V comes in, optimizing team topology. It might sound a bit technical, but it's really about aligning the team structure with that goal of empowerment we've been talking about.
So it's not just about throwing everyone into a room and saying, go be brilliant. There's a more nuanced approach.
Absolutely. Kagan outlines different team types: platform teams, experience teams, enabling teams, and how they should interact to maximize efficiency and innovation. Think of it like building a well-oiled machine where each part has a specific function, but they all work together seamlessly.
Can you give me a real-world example of how these different team types might function within a company?
Sure. Imagine a company like Netflix. They might have a platform team focused on the underlying streaming technology, ensuring that everything runs smoothly. Then you have experience teams dedicated to different aspects of the user experience: content discovery, personalization, even things like parental controls.
Okay, so each team has a very specific focus, but they all need to work together to create that seamless Netflix experience we all know and love.
Exactly. And Kagan emphasizes the importance of clear communication and collaboration between these different teams. It's about breaking down silos and creating a culture of shared ownership.
And that's not always easy, especially in larger organizations.
You're right. It takes a conscious effort to foster that kind of collaboration. But the results, as Kagan shows, were well worth it.
So we've got our empowered teams, a clear vision, a structure that supports collaboration. But what about the actual product strategy? Where does that fit into all of this?
That's where the rubber meets the road, you know?
Yeah.
And where a lot of companies stumble, I think. Kagan tackles this head-on in part 6 of the book, as summarized in the 1-Hour Guide by Anil Nathu. It's called Mastering Product Strategy. And he really makes the point that it's not enough to just have a great product. You need a smart plan to bring it to market.
I've seen so many projects just go completely off the rails because they lack that clear strategy. They were just reacting to the latest trends. Or even worse, someone's gut feeling.
Yeah, and Kagan is a huge proponent of data-driven decision-making.
Yeah.
You know, he argues that you really need to deeply understand your target market, your customers, even your competition. It's about using data to make informed choices, not just flying by the seat of your pants.
You know, it's funny. In today's world, we have more data than ever before. But it seems like some companies are still making decisions based on hunches and guesswork.
It's a trap that's easy to fall into. But Kagan provides some really concrete examples of how companies like Amazon use data to drive their product strategy. They're constantly iterating, experimenting, and adapting based on what they learn.
That actually reminds me of how, well, I use this app all the time, and they made this change a while back based on user data they collected. And at first I was like, what? Why are they doing that?
Yeah.
But you know what? It totally makes sense now. It completely transformed the app for the better. Data can be incredibly powerful when used the right way.
Absolutely. And it's not just about gathering data, it's about knowing which data matters and how to interpret it. Kagan talks about setting clear objectives and key results. You know those OKRs that everyone's always talking about? They really help you stay focused on the metrics that matter.
To be honest, I've always been a little fuzzy on how OKRs actually work in practice.
Well, they basically provide a framework for breaking down big, ambitious goals into smaller, measurable steps. It's like having a roadmap that everyone can follow, ensuring that everyone's rowing in the same direction.
So it's about having that alignment, that shared understanding of what success actually looks like. But let's get real for a moment. All this talk about empowered teams and data-driven strategy, does it actually work in the real world?
That's a fair question, and that's why I really appreciated that Kagan included a real-world case study in Part 8 of this one-hour guide by Anil Nathu. He walks us through how a struggling tech company applied his principles, and the transformation they experienced. It's honestly quite compelling.
I'm always a sucker for a good comeback story.
Yeah.
What kind of company was it? What were their challenges?
It was a mid-sized tech company kind of stuck in a rut, declining sales, low morale, you name it. They were losing ground to their competitors, and their product portfolio was starting to feel stale.
Sounds familiar.
Yeah.
I bet a lot of our listeners can relate to that feeling of being stuck, of not knowing how to break out of that downward spiral.
Exactly. But this company, guided by Kagan's principles, embarked on this transformation journey. They started by clarifying their product vision, realigning their teams, and empowering those teams to take ownership.
So it wasn't just a quick fix, it was a fundamental shift in their culture and their approach to product development.
Right. And they face pushback, of course. People are always resistant to change, especially when they're comfortable with the old ways of doing things.
I'm sure there were moments when they wanted to give up, to go back to the way things were.
Oh, absolutely. But they persevered, and the results speak for themselves. One of the most impressive outcomes was a significant increase in customer satisfaction. They went from being an afterthought to being known for their exceptional customer experience.
That's the dream. To create a product that people truly love and value. It shows how focusing on the customer and empowering teams to solve problems can lead to extraordinary results.
Absolutely. And those results, of course, translated into increased sales and market share. It's a real testament to the power of Kagan's approach.
This has been fantastic. We've covered empowered teams, leadership, vision, strategy, even a real-world success story. It's like we've been handed a roadmap to building extraordinary products.
But there's one last piece I think is crucial to highlight, and Kagan dedicates Part 9X of the book, or the summary in this one-hour guide, to this idea of collaboration.
Everyone talks about collaboration, but what's Kagan's take on it that makes it stand out?
He draws this really clear distinction between stakeholder management and true collaboration. Stakeholder management is about keeping people informed, getting their buy-in. It can feel very transactional. True collaboration is about inviting those stakeholders into the process, making them feel like they're truly part of the solution.
I've been in situations where I was just kept in the loop, but never really felt like my input was valued. True collaboration feels different, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And Kagan provides concrete advice on how to foster that kind of collaboration between product teams and other departments, marketing, sales, finance, all those groups that are essential to a product's success.
It makes sense. You can have the best product in the world. But if the rest of the company isn't on board, if they don't understand the vision or how to talk about it, it's going to be an uphill battle.
Kagan argues that product leaders need to be evangelists, constantly communicating the value of the product and building relationships across the organization.
It's about breaking down those silos, those us versus them mentalities that can creep into organizations.
Precisely. It's about recognizing that the success of a product depends on the collective effort of everyone in the company, not just the product team.
Well, I have to say this deep dive into Empowered has been incredibly insightful. We've covered so much ground, and I'm honestly walking away feeling energized and inspired.
Me too. It's a powerful reminder that building extraordinary products is about more than just technical skills. It's about leadership, culture, empowerment, strategy, and collaboration, all these elements working together.
And I want to give another shout out to the 1 Hour Guide by Anil Nathu for making these dense business books so much more accessible. It's like having a personal guide to the most important ideas.
Absolutely. It's a fantastic resource for anyone who wants to get a quick grasp of these complex concepts and start applying them to their own work.
Thank you for joining us today. Visit the 1 Hour Guide website for more business insights by Anil Nathu. We hope you feel empowered to go out there and create extraordinary things.